Alexander Alyohin against Grigory Lavanfish. Here white goes with 1d4, black responds with c5. This is Benoni defense. After d5, knight comes on f6, and knight c6 was met by d6 and e4. So in this variation, white's pawn is on c2, not on c4. That gives white some time to play something else. And after g6, here white goes with f4. So I decided to play a little bit more active in the center right now. There is some moves like e5 that black should be really careful with. So for this reason, black just decided to play knight d7 to control this square. White decided to play knight f3 to develop the piece. And e6. In this structure, in this opening, the idea for white is to control the center and at some point to push e5 and to gain some advantage. Also, we can d6 pawn and then to attack it with the knight. Black's idea is to develop the bishop on this diagonal and then to push b5 and to gain some space advantage on the queen side and to target b2 pawn. So after e6 here, white decided that it was time to push e5 pawn. Black responded by taking it, as knight has not really good scores to go, and it's always hard to get this knight back on g8 to this square where it was played. So for this reason, black simply decided to capture the pawn, and after capturing, knight comes on g4, and now the pawn is hanging. So white decided, instead of guarding this pawn with any of these moves, just to push it because it's possible. This pawn e6 just breaks the kingside pawn structure and also causes a lot of weaknesses for black. So here black decided to play knight d e5, but what happens if black captures the pawn? In that case, white captures the pawn back, and after knight e5, now we have the open d-file. So we have queen takes d8, king takes d8, and after knight takes e5, we have bishop f4. The knight is hanging, and knight doesn't have any good square to go. So if bishop g7 to guard this knight, now we have a long castle, and after king e8, there is the move knight d5. Knight wants to play knight c8 and win a rook with a fork, so king goes away on f8. But anyway, knight c8 attacks the rook, and after rook b8, we have rook d8, checkmate. Just to open up this file and allow white to have all this game is not a good choice for black, even though here black has another option, for instance knight b6 to keep the knight on the board. But anyway, we have queen trade and bishop f4. The pawn on e6 is hanging, so let's take a look what happens after bishop takes e6. Now knight comes on g5, attacks the bishop, and black has to be careful where to move this bishop, because if a bishop moves on f5 or d7, then it will be under knight f7 fork, so bishop has to come on g8, and after bishop e2, the knight is hanging, knight f6, and long castle is a check. So king d8 and bishop f3, this is winning position for white, as black cannot guard these pawn, and look at these pieces on the h rank. None of them are good pieces. They just are not developed and they don't have targets, so this position is very hard to play with black, and white has such a good coordination on the board, and this is winning position for white. So this is not working, and for this reason, after e6, black decided to play knight e5. So let's see what happens after that. Bishop comes on f4 and attacks the knight. Knight has to capture on f3, otherwise if bishop comes on g7 to guard the knight, then we have knight takes the knight, knight takes it back, and queen e2. This is winning position for white, as this piece now is not guarded, cannot go anywhere, and black's only move is to play queen c7, which just walks into this pin itself, and after g3, also very important move to our guard. bishop on f4, so there will be no knight. d3 checks, as the bishop is already guarded. White can simply castle on the long side and to play this position. There can be several ideas, either to push h4 h5 and try to checkmate the king, or to play some simple moves like bishop here and rook e1 to increase the pressure on this pin. So this line is not working for black. For this reason, black just captured the knight, and after g takes f3, we have knight f6. Here in this position, white already got space advantage, and white also developed more pieces than black. And here we have another piece, bishop c4 coming to this diagonal. Black captured the pawn and decided to play queen b6 just to create some threats. The pawn on e6 is hanging, as well as the pawn on b2. Wow. If you think that why not queen d1, is not it better to trade the queens and to play the end game is not that safer. In this case, it's not so safe for black because rook can capture and can come on this open diagonal. And after bishop g7, here we have bishop c7. Now the threat is rook d8 checkmate, so black has to capture. And after bishop e6, white will get this pawn, will attack this pawn, and it is huge advantage and a way much easier to play with white. So let's come back in the game and let's see what happens after queen b6. And today's topic is double rook sacrifice. Let's see how it has happened. Queen comes on e2 to guard. Very important, e6 pawn. This pawn controls all these light squares and keeps the king in the cage. So after this move, black decides to capture the pawn on b2, which attacks the rook and the knight at the same time with a check. This should not be so bad, right? But it is very bad move, and after white's brilliant move, black is just losing. You can pause the video and try to find by yourself this move. Take as much time as you need and try to find here a winning move for white. And don't forget to let me know in the comments after that. Well, what here goes with knight b5. This is the move which I love so much. It was not easy for me to find that move, but after saying it, it's just brilliant move. So now the knight itself is hanging, and also the rook is hanging with a check. But why this move is so good? What happens? For instance, if black simply captures it, bishop comes with a check on b5, and after king d8, we have rook d1 check, and black king cannot go anywhere, so black has to sacrifice the bishop. And after that, we have bishop e5. This attacks the queen and the knight at the same time. And then, even further, the rook is hanging. Also, the bishop is hanging. And here we have king on d8 under this pin. So this position is hopeless for black. So after knight b5, there is one last move that we can consider. This is queen a1, which happened in the game. If not this move, then black simply cannot avoid knight c7 jump. So let's see, after queen a1, here white's idea is to sacrifice another rook. So black captures that, and now it is time for a checkmate. If you can't find knight b5, that's okay, but you should find this checkmate right now. So pause the video and try it by yourself. Well, there is knight c7 check. King has to come on d8, and now we have another check, and you have queen d2. Queen can also come on d3 with a check. Black has to cover the king with bishop e7 or knight d7. And anyway, after e takes d7, it is impossible to avoid knight e6 checkmate. So black resigned over here, as it's no way to avoid this checkmate. Well, there is a move like e5 to try to escape with the king on e7. But anyway, this leads into a checkmate, and let's see what happens. Knight e6 check, king comes on e7, and now d8, queen. Black has to capture this queen. Queen d8, king f7 is only move, and now white has this pin over here, so white captures the bishop with the check. black doesn't have much of the options. And let's see what happens after knight d5. Bishop will simply capture that knight, and king g7 will be met by a checkmate, queen e7. So I hope you like this game and these ideas with double rook sacrifice, but this is not the end. We have another game prepared for you with the same sacrifice.